In recent weeks, reports have suggested there may be some internal issues happening at Arsenal women right now, but speculation and fact are not always the same thing. When narratives are built purely on partial information, this can often spiral and create a snowball effect. This in turn negatively influences players, staff, and anyone involved in the football club. So in this video, I want to take a step back and look at what was actually reported, what has been inferred, and what has been stated online, purely speculated really, and separate the fact from the fiction. So to begin, we have fact. What has actually been reported? Let's start with what we know for certain. The Athletic released an article. It discussed internal challenges going on at Arsenal women right now. The focus was on the dressing room dynamics and the pressures of managing a highly competitive team. What we do need to state is this: the article referenced tension. Yes, but it did not reference chaos. It did not accuse individuals at the club, and it did not suggest that the club is collapsing. Importantly, the article did not state that Arsenal women are in crisis, nor did it state that any of the players are toxic. And it did not state that the club is on the verge of falling apart, which, as we know, it is not. What it did suggest is something far more common in elite sport: that managing expectations, roles and communication in elite level football is incredibly difficult, especially during a period of transition. Now let's examine how fact turned into fiction online. Once the article entered the wider football conversation, the language around it began to change drastically. Online, nuance rarely survives. Tension becomes toxicity, and challenges become dressing room problems. And suddenly, unnamed players are being framed as issues. At this point, we move away from reporting and into storytelling. In women's football especially, the lack of constant media attention means fans are often filling in the gaps. Silence gets interpreted, body language is analysed, and squad rotation becomes personal. This is where fiction starts, not because concern doesn't exist, but because the conclusions being drawn go far beyond the evidence. But here's the thing: Arsenal are not unique, and this is the context that is often lost. Arsenal women are not unique in experiencing internal challenges. Any club with elite players, limited minutes, high expectations, and constant scrutiny will experience friction. As we know, Arsenal women are one of the most competitive sides in women's football. When you bring together players of that calibre, constant competition for positions is inevitable. Not everyone can start every week, and rotation, whether tactical or physical, is part of managing a top-level squad. However, from the outside, that competition turns into speculation. When a player is benched, fans begin to question what is going on. Is that player leaving? Is there a fallout internally? In reality, competition doesn't equal dysfunction. It signals depth. As we know, like many clubs in the WSL, Arsenal have had to navigate a slew of injuries, especially in the last season. Key players such as Leah Williamson, Kim Little, Chloe Kelly, Katie Reed, and Daphne Van Domselaar have all spent time unavailable. Losing multiple high-impact players, especially your captains, put a lot of strain on the club. It disrupts rhythm, affects selection, and puts a lot of pressure on those who are fit. It's completely reasonable to assume that behind closed doors, there's a lot of intensity at Arsenal women, but intensity doesn't equal instability. Now, of course, we saw leadership changes with Kim Little and Leah Williamson being out for quite a long period of time. We saw a temporary shift in leadership, with Steph Catley stepping up to take the captain's armband. However, this sparked speculation amongst fans because, as we know in the past, we've seen Katie McCabe take the armband. But this is a moment where assumption runs ahead of reality. Captaincy in football is rarely static when first choice leaders are unavailable. Rotating the armband in situations like that is normal, pragmatic, and often tactical. It does not indicate internal problems, nor does it suggest there is an issue with Katie McCabe. Without insight into the internal conversations going on at Arsenal, the safest and most accurate conclusion is often the simplest one: leadership adapted to circumstances. When players are used to starting don't play, tension is inevitable. That doesn't mean the culture is broken. It means the environment is demanding. Men's teams experience this constantly, but it's rarely framed as a moral failure. Now, here's the problem with player blame. One of the most damaging aspects of this entire conversation surrounding the article is how quickly it turns personal. Without names, without quotes, and without confirmation, individual players become stand-in for wider issues. We've already seen speculation about which players might be toxic, which might be leaving, and which are causing problems, none of which has been supported by evidence. And this is part of a pattern in women's football, where players are not judged on performance, but on perceived attitude. Silence becomes suspicious and frustration becomes a character flaw. So what is the truth? What is likely true from the Athletic article? That's what everyone wants to know. It is likely that Arsenal women, like many elite teams, are navigating internal challenges around communication, expectation, and squad management. That doesn't mean the dressing room is toxic, it doesn't mean the players are turning on each other, and it doesn't mean an exodus is coming. It means the club is operating in a highly pressurised environment. Why does this matter beyond Arsenal? The conversation matters beyond this one club because the way we talk about internal issues shapes the environment players operate in. If every challenge is treated as drama and every report becomes a rumour mill, then players are constantly on trial when nothing concrete has happened. And that pressure doesn't improve player performance, culture, or even trust. It just damages everything. So when we ask what is going on at Arsenal women right now, we don't know. We don't have the answers, and that's okay. But what we do know is that separating fact from fiction matters, because women's football deserves analysis, not assumption. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.